A curse is being passed from person to person, causing them to smile uncontrollably before chaos is unleashed. And in the case of Dr. Rose Cotter, can she work out how to break the chain before she becomes the next victim? In this episode of Nightmare Fuel, we are going to discuss 2022's Smile, a psychological horror film that went through one of the best bits of movie marketing I've ever seen. And though the movie itself has been divisive, for me I think the fuel within is still present. So let's talk about it, where as per all Nightmare Fuel episodes, there will be major spoilers ahead. Myself and Hugh saw this film in the cinema when it was first released, and we both really enjoyed it for the most part. Sure, the ending wasn't the greatest and it was a bit too long, but there's some stuff in here that was up there with some of the most effective scares we've seen in the cinema. It's not a totally original film, and it does rely on a pick and mix bag of tropes, but it was disturbing in parts, and that's what I would like to chat about today, the techniques used by the film's creators to provoke its fear factor. I think that the pre-title section to the film was handled really rather well, injecting mystery and intrigue into the film, combined with some unsettling fear. We are introduced to Rose, played by Sosie Bacon, who we first meet talking to a man named Karl, who is quite clearly troubled and going through a manic episode. Rose is able to identify this relatively quickly, partially because of her job role, but also because she herself has experienced psychological harm in her past, which I want to cover in a bit more detail later on. Anyway, Rose meets with her second patient, Laura, who is the first cursed character encountered in the film. I really like how this scene is put together. Rose and Laura discuss what's going on with Laura. She says that she isn't crazy, she's a PhD candidate, and what she's saying sounds unbelievable but swears that it isn't. She claims that she's being stalked by something evil, which can take on the appearance of a random series of people. Right away my ears pricked up at the similarity to the concept of 2014's It Follows. Laura progressively becomes more agitated and panicked before hinting that the presence told her that today is the day that she will die. For the film's first jump scare, I liked the effectiveness here. Laura looks away from Rose, but when bringing her eyes back to Rose, she has a startled reaction and falls backwards, accompanied by a loud noise, yet there is nothing present in the room. All we see is the shocked expression of Laura as she scrambles on the floor from nothing. But the imagination can fill in the gap here of what could it have been that sparked such a horrific reaction from Laura. A solid example of contextualizing an empty room with a threat inside it. When Rose calls for help and turns around again, Laura has moved, now stood with a disturbing fixed smile, the smile used for the majority of the film's marketing campaign. She uses a sharp fragment of a smashed pot to carve her neck open, collapsing to the ground and bleeding to death, all while her smile remains fixed. We zoom into Rose's eye and the film title blares in a nauseating flash, and this entire sequence is capped off with a bizarre electronic musical arrangement by Cristobal Tapia de Villa, who has previously composed music for Black Mirror and Utopia. It sounds so off and weird, but fully complements the oddness of the situation and the film throughout. For an opening scene, I think there was some strong nightmare fuel here, largely down to the frantic performance by Caitlin Stasey as Laura. And as a setup for the film ahead, I was in. Laura continues to stalk Rose at her house in a really underplayed scare of her barely lit silhouette being slowly panned to standing in the living room. It threw me back to the silhouette scare in Hereditary, and generally speaking, I really do love this technique in film, of a shape both vague and recognizable being just about visible, yet not quite there. It was a creepy shot here that didn't have any bells and whistles on it. Subtle, simple, yet rather effective. So now Rose has witnessed the death of Laura, we come to see her becoming the next possessor of the Smile curse. When returning to hospital, Karl is now smiling, shouting that Rose is going to die. It's the first version of the Smile entity that Rose witnesses, of which there are several variants throughout the film. Some of them are creepy, some of them are a little silly looking admittedly, especially Rose's therapist, who in our cinema screening got the entire room chuckling, but regardless, I do quite like the concept of the Smile entity. Something about the expression of a dangerous being gazing at you with glee is a lot stranger and more unnerving than something looking angry, in my opinion. There's almost like a childlike pleasure that smiling foes get from instilling fear in their victims, a true form of delight that encompasses them, and the Smile entity absolutely slots right into that category. One thing I want to talk about regarding a few of the film's scares is the use of misdirection. Firstly, we have a scene wherein Rose's house appears to have been intruded, with her security company being triggered to contact the house. Rose answers the phone, provides her details, but then the caller switches into being sinister. In the moment reminiscent of threatening call scenes like Scream, When a Stranger Calls, or the phone segment from Black Sabbath. But the voice tells Rose to turn around, and when she does, the phone is no longer in her hand, it's back in the holder. I love this because you expect Rose to turn a full circle and either see something behind her or see nothing, and then something will scare her from another part of the room, that kind of thing. But in both of those scenarios, you do expect a full turn to be performed. However, Rose only half turns before the scare moment occurs. So this little moment right here went against the preconceived ideas a lot of regular horror movie goers may have expected there. However, the moment that I think takes that idea and maximizes on it is my personal highlight of the film, the audio scene. Rose sits on her laptop and listens back to the recording of her interview with Laura. She gets so far into the recording before she thinks she can hear something strange on the file, but it's very quiet. She gradually boosts the volume and plays back the moment several times. Now, as someone who's edited audio for the channel for over 3 years now, I was naturally focusing my ears into the film, and that's clever. Usually when it comes to jump scares, it's your eyes that focus. You're looking all over the screen for where the bad thing is going to jump out. You do expect a loud noise, but you also expect something visual. However, in this laptop scene, it's your ears that become focused instead. Since the setup of the scene is audio-centric, you still expect a loud noise, but in my opinion, only a loud noise. Something's gonna shout really loudly despite there not being a wavelength on screen or something like that. So for the jump scare here to be a visual one, and done incredibly suddenly, with the laptop being the point of misdirection while the scare occurs separately from where your focus is aimed, was genius. It still winds up being a combination of a visual and an audio scare, but it lures you in to make you think it's going to be a purely audio scare. I genuinely put this moment here in my all-time top jump scares I've seen in a cinema environment, due to again playing around with the audience expectancy and pulling off almost kind of like double bluffs to where the scare is going to come from. Hats off from me right there. Sadly, I think that the one scare that could have gone down as a classic scare was spoiled by the film's marketing. This was in relation to Rose going to her sister Holly's house. By this point in the film, they've had a falling out over Rose forgetting her nephew's birthday party, and then at the party, giving him a present of her dead cat mustache, which traumatizes him. The two sisters reunite and have a little bit of an argument, and then Rose returns to her car. Holly walks to the car before her head bends and twists downwards, peering through the window. The expression on Holly's face is horrendous, and I recall people getting startled when this scene appeared in the trailer alone. By exposing this moment prior to release, I think was a bad call, as this one definitely possesses some nightmare fuel to those who are unaware of it. It's a shame, really. Rose and her friend, an investigator named Joel, look into previous victims of the curse to find the link between them all, before going to talk to a known survivor of the curse in prison named Robert Tally. Tally as in tally mark, like counting up the victims perhaps, who knows. He says that the only way to get rid of the curse is to kill someone with a witness, and then the witness will get the curse. Realizing she can't bring herself to murder, Rose believes that as the curse requires a witness, she ends up going to her abandoned family home to isolate herself from witnesses. This brings up a really important side to the film that I haven't mentioned so far, but one which I think was perhaps the strongest layer to the film. When she was 10 years old, Rose witnessed her mother's dead body. She went mad, according to Holly, which drove Holly to leaving home, while Rose stayed. Addicted to pills and alcohol, as we can see in the surrounding to her bed, Rose's mother plays a vital part in the key theme of the Smile entity. Tally tells Rose that the entity gains its power from trauma. This adds a grain of uncertainty to Rose's experience here. You could believe that it is a curse that's pursuing her, but she also has these other links to trauma in her life, which could be the core reason why she's going through what she's going through. Again, a kind of form of plot misdirection. As her mother went insane, Holly suggests that what is happening to Rose could be the same thing that happened to their mother, so could this be a hereditary mental illness? We also learn that while Rose talks to her therapist, she has previously been on medication, due to Rose asking if she should return to taking medication. This implies that Rose has previously been treated, but has been off medication for a period of time. Therefore, could her experiences in the film be scars resurfacing? This is further hinted at after Rose's scare earlier in the film where she drops and smashes a glass. Her fiancé, Trevor, asks Rose if she's broken another glass. This is a subtle implication that Rose may have had bad episodes like this during their relationship, separate to the Smile entity. It makes you wonder just what is actually happening to Rose throughout the film. Is it really a curse, or is it a string of coincidences between between the victims, with suicidal tendencies being at the forefront. When it comes to people going through those emotions, being told to smile is almost the physical embodiment of being happy. Yet here, the point these victims smile is the point where they die. At the birthday party, Rose sees the entity again, falls through a glass table, and winds up in hospital, where a clever image shows an emotion chart on the wall with the full smile at the top of the chart representing no pain. So the symbolic suggestion is made here that by the victims killing themselves with a smile, they're relieving themselves of the pain in their lives. Sadly for Rose, she faces her pain head-on by returning to the family home, where she encounters the cursed embodiment of her mother. This was pretty frightening, by the way. Not only is the elongated, spindly body of the mother combined with the wide-eyed, smiling demonic face a whopper of a nightmare fuel combination, but I think that it signifies how Rose viewed her mother. She's a devilish, monstrous figure who towers massively above Rose. Often when scared, you can see the thing that scares you as being larger than it actually is. But also, Rose was only a child when she experienced the horrors of her mother's insanity. So as she is now a fully grown adult, it's as if her mother has kept to the same scale, now appearing enormous. Don't get me wrong, the whole peeling off the face thing, which happens twice in this film, I think went too overboard and didn't work, tarnishing the creep factor by pushing the needle a bit too far, but generally the appearance of the mother here was pretty bloody petrifying. Rose ultimately cannot defeat the curse, setting herself alight with Joel as the next witness, taking on the curse. So after all that investigation and trying to outwit the curse with research and strategy, the curse still won. And I'm glad it did, because it's put the curse over as being powerful and tough to deal with, meaning that come the end of the film, it's still a threat rather than being vanquished. Smile is a film that, with my review head on, does have some problems, but overall I do still quite enjoy the film. However, with my nightmare fuel head on, I think that director and writer Parker Finn has some really good techniques and ideas in this film that just about squeezed Smile into our Nightmare Fuel Hall of Fame. But what do you lot think of Smile? Let me know in the comments below, and if this video made you smile, a cheeky sub to the channel would be much appreciated to help our curse spread. I've been Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and we shall see you next time for another dose of Nightmare Fuel.